Hey, we're live.
We are live. We'll check that out. So I wonder how long it will take until some people join us. And if you're watching us, please send a comment in. Let us know where you're watching us. And also if you can hear us, which I assume if you're answering us, then we would know that you're hearing us. So I'm excited about today. Are you excited about today?
I am very excited about today because I know this is a hot topic.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And, certainly most people recognize the fact that that if they can improve their focus, they can improve their results. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about, some very simple things that you can do to really kind of jack up your ability to focus and therefore to produce results. And, I know that a lot of people struggle with focus. I know that in the past, for me, focus had been something I struggle with, like partly because I have ADD. But nowadays that doesn't tend to be a problem whatsoever. And more often than not, I tend to hyperfocus. Oh, okay, cool. So John Jaworski, good to see you, John. So John is watching on Facebook. Very cool. Yeah. I don't even know if I guess we wouldn't even get the ones from Instagram, would we?
I've got Instagram open, so
Yeah.
I will be
Can you see if we're already live there?
monitoring everything. That is what I am looking at right now. See, we are testing out some new tools.
Yes.
Hopefully we are streaming on multiple YouTube channels and Facebook pages and all sorts of places.
Yes.
So,
and I have no idea. Like I've tried this before and people told me I was on Instagram, but I could never find it. So I don't know what the deal is there. Hey, Jason, good to see you, my friend. And as Michelle is looking for that, I also want to tell you about what's going on. So above my head to the right, you can see that there's a logo. It's called Apex Human is the name of the company, or it's the name of the brand, or whatever you want to call it. And that's going to be a new channel that we launch in Strategic Profits that we have. For those of you who are unaware, we have a product that's been our core focus for the last 2 years called Steal Our Winners. And we've just spent the last year basically working on a new platform. We've put the beta users in. This was the week I think the lifetime members came in. And in 2 or 3 more weeks, we'll have all of our regular members in. And this new platform looks like Netflix, bills like Audible, and has tremendous AI built in. And so I want to leverage AI just not only in marketing to help every entrepreneur get the right strategy at the right time to grow their business the most. I also want to do this in biohacking. I want that there have been numerous things in my life that have made a tremendous difference. When I first walked into my doctor's office, my current doctor, Dr. Mark Rosenberg, I was 250 pounds. I had no energy, and I was quickly eating myself to death and working myself to death. And over the last 15 years or so, I've gotten in insanely better shape and have ridiculously more energy and my ability to focus and all that. And I want to make sure that that all the great discoveries that are coming out in relation to optimal performance, both physically and mentally, that we figure out a way to make sure that anyone who's interested in improving themselves gets the exact right information at the right time. And in biohacking and nootropics and things like that, it's not the same problem as in marketing. So in marketing, right, the best strategies are often secret. They're not published anywhere. And it's not until a few years later that they're in courses, and then a few years later, everybody knows. And so what we strive for in Steal Our Winners is to provide strategies that no one knows that are currently crushing it. It's kind of the opposite in biohacking and nootropics in these areas. In general, in these areas, there's tremendous amounts of information. The information does not go stale. There might be new research studies, so there might be updates, but it's not stale. And something from 10 years ago works just as well as something maybe from this year. And so there is a tremendous amount of great information out there on human optimization. And the challenge, though, is finding the right stuff at the right time. And that's where AI can come in. And so Michelle is with me today, Michelle Schaefer, and she's been behind the new platform in a big way and worked with her and Mars over the years, many different times. And Michelle is working with me on the biohacking channel, Apex Human, because if it was left to my own devices, I would never finish it. Hence why my Colby score has a 3 for follow through. I tend to elongate projects, not finish them. So Michelle is my sidekick as we look to create the most awesome, amazing channel for human optimization. And it's going to be very different than Steal Our Winners from the standpoint of we're going to have series in it, like series on nootropics. We have a bunch of influencers that we're plugging in. We have some of the best people in self-quantification that are going to be contributing. And we haven't even fully put the whole plan together. So really excited about that. So let me just say hello to a few people here. And then Michelle, you could tell us like what you're most excited about in it. Hold on. There we go.
Okay.
Hold on.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is
stand this out a little bit here.
This is one of those things when Rich started talking about it, it was yeah, you've got to do that because I think for so many of us, we've had similar journeys, Rich, to yours. I know I've shared with people before. I landed myself in the ER at 28. I was over 200 pounds, which I'm only 4'11". So for me, that was extremely overweight. I had a laundry list of medical issues that the doctor at the ER told me as my children were sitting outside the door, if you don't lose weight and get yourself healthy, you're not going to see your kids turn 18. Wow. And that was where things started for me looking seriously at, okay, what do I need to do to actually be healthy? And from there, that kind of evolved into, okay, well, what else can I do to really optimize my performance? And when my brain is working better and my body is functioning better, I can be better. I can show up better for my clients, for my family, for everything that I care about in life. And one of the things I'm excited about is getting to learn Rich's secrets and strategies behind the scenes, because I know I have seen your morning routine and there are more bottles and labels on the counter than I even knew existed. And so I'm excited to go over the tips that you have to share today on how to focus when you need to focus. Some of them I know I've tried. Some of them are exciting for me to get to test out, but I know this is going to be incredibly helpful for so many of us who don't have the time to sit through the hour, 2 hour, 3 hour podcast and sort through all of the science and all of the things that are coming out, and to be able to just go straight to what we're looking for to really help in the areas that we're most looking to improve and optimize ourselves in.
Yeah, totally. And so our plan originally was to share 10 strategies in total, 5 like things you can do quickly that will immediately make a difference, and 5 longer term solutions. The challenge with that is that I do a lot more than 5. And so instead, what we're going to do today is we're going to focus just on the short term. And then we'll do a part 2 that is more long term, right? But before even getting into the short term strategies, I think it's really important to kind of cover a few things. And I see all of you who are commenting, so I appreciate that. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, John. Good to see you, Rob Braddock. I still want to interview you for Steal Our Winners if you ever have some free time. And I also see you, Kia. So really happy to share some of this. But the first thing is that, you know, there are some prerequisites. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on prerequisites, but if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're not physically active, if your nutrition sucks, then, you know, there's only so much that you can do. Sure, you can take some stimulants and they will overpower them in the short run, but long term, it's not really a recipe for success. And so sleep, exercise, and nutrition are kind of the basics. And if you really abuse yourself in those areas, you can just, you're climbing an uphill battle. It doesn't mean that you can't still like use certain supplements and certain nootropics to still create focus, but you're kind of burning the candle at both ends. And, you know, every part of the body is impacted by the limbic system except the brain. The brain has its own system for clearing out the waste in the human brain, and that only happens while you're sleeping. So the only way that the waste products from your cells actually leave your brain is when you sleep, and that's critically important. That actually is associated with every brain disease, as far as Alzheimer's, et cetera, not getting all the waste out on a continual basis. So with that said, right, let me now kind of first tell you some, I would call this grounding information as it relates to focus, but it's also related to really nootropics in general. So if you're going to take nootropics, this is critically important. And I'll set it up by just sharing a quick story that I was talking to Maxwell Finn of Unicorn about a year ago. And Max is a close friend of mine, and his company Unicorn has sold a lot of Onnit Alpha Brain. And I asked him one day, like, do you ever take it? And he said, I've tried, but anytime I take it, I get a headache. And I told him, well, that's because you don't probably have enough acetylcholine going on in your brain. Because oftentimes when you take any kind of nootropic, what it's doing is it's upregulating the acetylcholine. And if you don't have enough acetylcholine, you'll get a headache. Choline is in pretty much chicken, eggs, beef, etc. I have eggs every morning, so it's never really been a challenge for me to get enough choline, although I do supplement it with as well. But there are basically 3 neurotransmitters that are involved in focus and attention. It's acetylcholine, dopamine, and norepinephrine. And so acetylcholine enhances focus. It inhibits distraction by directly increasing the neural signal in sensory regions like the prefrontal cortex, right? The part that you use for executive function. Dopamine is responsible for motivation. I think most people are more familiar with dopamine and telling the brain what to focus on, and is elevated whenever you're learning something new, anticipating something, or solving a problem. And norepinephrine, or noradrenaline, acts alongside dopamine to promote wakefulness, motivation, vigilance, and regulates cognitive function, reaction time, and mediates attention. So those are the 3 primary neurotransmitters that you would focus on if you want to increase your focus and you want to be able to use any kind of nootropic, right? It's going to hit one of those 3 pathways at the end of the day. Make sense?
Absolutely.
All right.
We're putting some notes in the comments as we go, guys, so you'll be able to keep up with where Rich is at.
Cool. I appreciate that. All right. So with that said, let's just get into some of the things that you can do to increase your focus. Now, I broke this up into, this is not comprehensive. These are just some of the things that you can do. And I broke it up in things to take, things to listen to, things to wear, things to use, things to do, and then some general information as well, right? So with that said, let's go into things to take, right? So there is caffeine, right? Caffeine in its most basic is a powerful nootropic, right? It increases function of the brain. This is my favorite coffee, stock iced coffee. I go through these like they're going out of style.
Drinking mushroom coffee.
Yeah, this, but the good news with this is that ever since I started drinking this, my Diet Coke consumption has gone way down. And I believe that this is healthier because it just has coffee. That's it. And it's so smooth. So this is a plug for Stock Coffee. Someday I hope they sponsor me because I spend a lot of money on this coffee, even though it's cheap. But for those of you who have used caffeine, and most of us have, right? Another thing that you can, if you're too sensitive to caffeine or you don't like the racy feeling, if you get that, I haven't had that in like, 30 years from caffeine. But you can combine it with L-theanine, and L-theanine will help actually augment the focus and also dial back any anxiety-provoking things. Now there are two caffeine derivatives that actually I'm really excited to try. I've read some really good research on it. I've just recently ordered them. One is called Teacrine, so Teacrine, and it has less potential for tolerance buildup than regular caffeine. It has a longer half-life. It has no jitters. There's no effect on blood pressure or heart rate, and there is no crash or withdrawal. So a cleaner type of caffeine, really. And that's called T-creen. And then there's dynamine. And dynamine is another cousin of caffeine, also without any of the negative side effects of caffeine. Dynamine is basically a shorter acting, harder hitting theacrine, right? So theacrine lasts a little bit longer than caffeine. Dynamine is shorter than caffeine. Its effects only last a few hours. And for that reason, it's perfect if you got to focus for a few hours in the evening or something like that. Both of those are, I've read a lot of good stuff about them. I just ordered them, so I haven't tried them myself, but I wanted to share those. And I get those at Nootropics Depot. So nootropicsdepot.com is where I get theacrine and dynamine. It's not made like they're actually trademarked formulas by someone else, but you know, they license it. Okay, the next is Panax ginseng. All right. So this I take daily, just like caffeine. It should boost your energy levels, both mental and physical. It has stimulant-like qualities, and if you're dealing with chronic fatigue, this will certainly help. Your energy, though, from this has a more relaxed feel. So you get the boost of energy, but you don't have that like racy feeling of caffeine. It boosts mental alertness, and thinking should be quicker and clearer, and recall and long-term memory also improves from Panax ginseng. There are a lot of other benefits to Panax ginseng. It can suppress your appetite. It boosts cognition, reduces fatigue, reduces depression, anxiety, and stress, improves memory and learning. It's a neuroprotectant because it's an adaptogen. Okay. The next one.
And real quick disclaimer, two things. Number one, this is not medical advice.
Yes.
Ask your doctor, do your research. And if you're looking for dosages, do your research on some nootropic sites to find the right dosage for your weight, for your health conditions.
Yes.
Real quick.
We will have that information when you're in Apex, but we're not doctors at the end of the day. And we'll have we might have some doctors who actually consult with us on this, but I'm sharing what I do. Yep. And if you guys decide to try any of these things, obviously you're doing them at your own risk. My constitution is pretty high. And so most things that I take at higher dosages than most. And most people, if they were to take what I take, would probably have a heart attack. So I'm just kind of giving you that heads up right now.
I take many of these things, but at lower dosages than Rich does.
Well, I mean, and a perfect example of that is nicotine. So let's go on to the next one, right? So nicotine is a proven nootropic. And, you know, a lot of people have this misunderstanding thinking nicotine is unhealthy. Nicotine is not unhealthy. In fact, when the NIH, National Institute of Health, lists the 70 things in cigarettes that can cause cancer, nicotine is not one of the ones mentioned at all. Nicotine doesn't cause cancer. That's why it's not mentioned, right? So nicotine is a proven nootropic, right? I remember reading an article in Discovery magazine over a decade ago about it. But just nicotine's a great one to talk about, like what I do versus what like a normal person should do, okay? So you've probably seen me chew gum. If you've ever seen me chew gum, it is nicotine gum. That's what I chew, right? This right here that I have in my hand is nicotine gum. This is 16 milligrams of nicotine, right? Like this will take most people and it would make them nauseous, throw up, unconscious, like feel sick, lightheaded. This is what I chew all day long. And I replace them, right? So I put a tremendous amount in me, and I'm not suggesting that that's healthy. I don't like that I have this high tolerance for everything. Everything, right? I could drink a bottle of Jack. I could like everything that anytime I want to mess with my brain, it requires a lot. But the average dose for the average person would be 1 milligram. Yeah. So this is 16 times the regular dose.
This is what I use.
Is that 4 milligrams?
It's 4 milligrams, and it's the coffee flavored nicotine pouches.
Oh, nice.
When Rich first told me about this, I thought he was crazy. I went and looked it up and found the studies that they had done about how it can actually help reverse Alzheimer's, and I went, "Oh, maybe there's something to this."
Yeah.
Um, and I started with a much, much lower dose of it. I got the 4 milligram pieces of gum and literally cut them into 4 pieces. So it was about a milligram that I was taking. More than that made me nauseous at first. But it definitely helps with focus. I was shocked at the difference that it made.
Yeah, it can make a huge difference. And for those of you, I mean, the only thing that you have to be careful of is that nicotine is somewhat of an addictive substance. It's not as addictive as sugar. It's not as addictive as a lot of the other things that are in cigarettes, but it nonetheless, like caffeine, you could say, is addictive, right? But nicotine improves attention, it improves learning, it improves motor skills, it facilitates memory functions, it decreases irritability and anxiety. And a bunch of other things. So it's a pretty powerful chemical. If you've never tried it, something to possibly consider if focus is a challenge for you. I got into the habit of this when I was in college, actually chewing tobacco. I would chew tobacco and drink caffeine, sometimes take a no-dose, not no-dose, Broncaid, which had ephedrine in it. And that was my killer combo for like staying up all hours and cramming for exams. Now, the next one I want to tell you about is bromantane. And bromantane is probably one of my favorite nootropics. It's also one of my favorite stimulants / anti-anxieties out there because one, there aren't very many stimulants that are also an anti-anxiety. It's a very unique combination, right? Makes you relax at the same time it's amping you up, which is kind of crazy. It's also I have a lot like I'm very much into all this stuff, right? I'm into this stuff as much, if not more, than I am into marketing, right? And so I have in my house a ridiculous number of different stuff. Companies sometimes send me stuff. Friends who own companies send me stuff. And then all the stuff I order. And I will order almost anything and try at least once, right? I'll clear it with my doctor first. Sometimes he's like, I wouldn't try that. Don't do that. But most of the time he's like, yeah, try that. Try this dose, whatever. But so when people come over my house, I always want, like people who are into nootropics always want to try stuff, right? Because generally I have a lot of stuff that most people have never heard of. This is one that I feel very comfortable giving anyone that comes over my house, which says a lot because the last thing I want when someone's coming and visiting me is to try something and then be on the couch or be like, or sweating or their the room spinning or anything like that. That's the last thing I want. So this is an effective thing that no matter how delicate someone is or not, or how much experience they've had with nootropics or not, this tends to work insanely well. And I haven't met anyone. So Rob, this might be the thing for you to try. I haven't met anyone that didn't have like really good results with it. And that's not the case with a lot of other nootropics, including prescription nootropics like modafinil, right? Like a lot of people, modafinil seems to be a hit or miss kind of thing. Like for some people it works really well, for some people it doesn't. But with bromantane, I've never met anyone that didn't get a positive effect from it. Now I take 150 milligrams of bromantane, so that's 3 mLs. But the average dose is 50 milligrams.
Yeah, I take about 50 milligrams. The first time I tried it was actually at your place. And guys, I tried it, and within like 2 hours, I had ordered some of it. It both. I felt more focused, but it also didn't have that like anxious focus. I felt more relaxed and more focused at the same time, and I take that every day.
Yeah. So the place I used to recommend for bromantane was science.bio. And but science.bio is closing due to regulations. So I just put in an order and got a whole bunch, and it's clean and it's good. It's been tested from Nootropic Source. So nootropicsource.com is now where I get my bromantane. And really, like if anyone is struggling with focus and you've tried stuff like Adderall and Provigil and things, and you just haven't found the right thing for you, bromantane is one of the ones that like I would go to first. Like it is something that I just feel is one of these wonderful chemicals out there that more people should know about, especially if they struggle with focus. Next, and hopefully you guys are enjoying this. That's my hope, is that that I'm telling you some supplements here, some nootropics that you haven't heard of, or you have heard of but maybe didn't know where to get it. This is hopefully helping you then.
Yes, and in a minute, we're gonna go into some hacks that are not nootropics based, that are things you can do, things you can wear, things you can
Yeah.
listen to. So stay tuned, even if you don't want to try any
Yeah.
of the drug type solutions.
Yeah. We got a few more in the actual ingesting things, but that's not everything. Okay, so the next one is Huperzine A. Huperzine A is also something I take daily. It is known as an acetylcholine sterase inhibitor. So it blocks acetylcholine from being drawn back up. So just like a serotonin reuptake inhibitor can work on depression by leaving more serotonin in the brain, it doesn't get sucked up as quickly, right? Same here, but this is for acetylcholine. It also raises blood pressure. So if you have problems with your blood pressure, then Huperzine A might not be the right thing for you. It's an extremely small dose. We're talking micrograms, not grams. It is, it works primarily with the acetylcholine. And basically, because it's blocking the reuptake, you have more to use. So then if you're using a nootropic with that, it'll tend to have a synergistic effect with it. And so that's why I take it daily. It also is good for physical performance too. So I generally take it in the morning before I head to the gym.
Yeah, that's when I discovered, because it was in my pre-workout. I was surprised when I started getting into nootropics, how many things in my pre-workouts were also nootropics.
You won't find bromantane in any of your pre-workouts, but it is a performance-enhancing drug, and it will actually allow you to go for longer without getting tired. Physical fatigue, like working out.
Which does bring up another quick disclaimer. I'm just going to be the legal disclaimer on the live stream. If you are in any sort of sport where you are being drug tested, research the heck out of these before you take them.
Yeah, some of these would get. Yes, some of these are banned substances.
Substance list for that. So
they can be bought over the counter, but they're banned as far as sports performance. Yeah. Okay. So the next category of things you can ingest are racetams, and there's a whole bunch of them, right? And they have different effects. So the one I take, I used to take 2 daily, no matter what. Like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing that day. And that would be aniracetam and phenylpiracetam. So, hey, Cam Fats is in the house. So let me tell you about aniracetam first. Aniracetam boosts brain cell signaling by increasing the effectiveness of glutamate, which helps with focus and concentration. Aniracetam helps release 200 to 300% more acetylcholine in your brain, which helps with focus, clarity of thought, memory and recall. And it seems to also affect dopamine and serotonin receptors in the brain as well. That's one of the reasons why it can potentially help reduce depression, reduce anxiety, reduce fear. And that's the reason I take it daily. I take it daily for more the antidepressive nature of it. I struggled with depression when I was younger. I do a lot of things on a daily basis to prevent myself from feeling that kind of depression ever again. So aniracetam is one of those things, right? What total aside here, tangent, I'm not going to do this very often because we want to keep these clean, but if you struggle with depression, something to consider, something to research, something to think about. I started about a month ago taking an extremely low dose of lithium. So lithium is a natural mineral of the body, right? I take 50 micrograms of that daily. And I've noticed a positive effect from it. When you are prescribed lithium, like if you were ever prescribed it, the prescription would be 5 grams. So 1,000 times more the dose. But the reason I wanted to try it was that there's a lot of research that shows that there are less suicides wherever the drinking water has more lithium in it. And also, we're talking micrograms. So when I read that research, I called my doctor and I asked him, is this something that, that I could try? He's like, yeah, sure. 50 micrograms, not a problem. So anyway, I also think that, just as an aside here, but related back on topic, that a lot of times people don't get focused, or they have a challenge with focus because there is an underlying anxiety or there is an underlying depression. I find it for myself, and I don't know if this is unique or not, I assume it's not, is that up to a point, when I'm in a good mood, it's relatively easy to focus. Now, I could be in too good of a mood and then I don't want to focus at all. I want to go spend money and have a good time. But in general, when I am in a funk, I don't really feel like doing anything, let alone focusing, right? And so I share that, I share like the depression stuff, and we'll do a whole thing on depression, because I literally do as many things that I do for focus, I do for depression as well. But that might be the problem. So if you have a low-grade depression, that could be a challenge, like as far as getting focus. So Oxaracitab I take partly for that reason, but the antidepressant reasons, but it also does release another 200 to 300% acetylcholine, which is certainly useful for all the different nootropics that I'm using, right? So that's Oxaracitab. Phenylpiracetam. So the original racetam was piracetam. And that was the first one that was invented. All these are derivatives of it. Phenylpiracetam is 1,000 times stronger than piracetam. Right now, there's a shortage of phenylpiracetam. Can't get it. There's another phenylpiracetam that's like something, there's another word after it. I forget what it is. More expensive, also more difficult to find, but happens to be in stock right now. I just ordered some of that. I got it. But it comes in powder, and it's so powerful, like you need to have like micrograms. So I have to figure out how I'm going to ingest such trace amounts. But phenylpiracetam, which was part of my daily stack, and will be as soon as it gets back in, and unless I try this new one and I'm so blown away by it. Phenylpiracetam increases the acetylcholine, the NMDA, the GABA, and the dopamine receptors in the brain. So it increases the density of it so that there's more ability to respond, like it makes more impact. More receptors means more binding sites of neurotransmitters that affect memory formation, cognition, sleep, and mood. It increases blood flow in the brain, which provides more oxygen and nutrients to the brain cells, alertness, cognition, focus, and mood. And phenylpiracetam can help reduce symptoms of anxiety, depression, and fear without the type of side effects that you normally get from antidepressants, likely because it increases the density of receptors for acetylcholine, GABA, and NMDA. Many neurohackers say that phenylpiracetam is the strongest nootropic that they've ever experienced. It's highly bioavailable, and you experience the effects within 30 minutes of taking it. Generally, I would get phenylpiracetam at Nootropics Depot. They are currently out of it, and they've been out of it for the last couple of months, so I don't know if there's like a shortage in the industry or not. I haven't trekked Nootropic Source for it, and I probably should, so I probably will. But the recommended dosage of phenylpiracetam is much less. Like I take like about 1,500 milligrams of Oxaracitab. That's 750 in the morning and 750 in the afternoon. I take 100 milligrams, just to give you a perspective, right? 100, so 1/15.
And I only take about 25 milligrams of that.
5 milligrams?
25.
25. All right.
I'm somewhere between a tenth and a fourth on dosages with most of the stuff of what you're taking.
Got it. So now I'll tell you about the other racetams that I take from time to time, right? So Oxaracitab is one that I take from time to time. I find personally, and I haven't really seen much written about it, about this effect, but for me it does. For me, it helps with my self-discipline a little bit. It helps me kind of like stick to the plan. I don't know what that is, right? Like, I don't like whether that's less distractibility or if it's something else going on. but I know that like I am more likely to follow through with what I was planning on doing when I take it. So a lot of times when I'm got to do something that I have a tendency maybe not to do or skirt around, like processing all of the going through all the credit card statements and classifying like which are expenses for the business, which are personal, like that's just not fun. I don't want to do that. If I take oxiracetam, it's more likely to happen. It's
So
more
now,
potent. Okay,
when
go
we
ahead.
have calls scheduled, I'll just text you an hour beforehand. Did you take that today? Yeah.
Yes. It's more potent than paracetam, as most are. It improves processing speed and analytical thinking. There's clinical evidence of it enhancing learning, memory, cognition, and it's primarily by augmenting the cholinergic and glutagenic pathways. Sorry, but basically the same thing. We're talking about acetylcholine here. Oxiracetam also increases the binding sites, the density of binding sites for the AMPA receptors, resulting in a stimulant effect without any of the negative side effects of stimulants. People who use oxiracetam report that it helps clear brain fog and improves focus and motivation, especially when learning new material or working through a tedious task. Right, the tedious task part is the part that, like for me, recommended oxiracetam dosages are generally around 750 milligrams to 1500 milligrams. Like, you know, if you're doing 1500, it's twice during the day, right? 750, one in the morning, one in the early afternoon. You definitely don't want to be doing these in the evening because they will keep you up. There's fasiracetam. I've taken that. It also enhances the acetylcholine and also GABA, which is more your relaxed neurotransmitter. So that can also help with easing symptoms of anxiety, and also very useful for people with ADHD, which is one of the reasons that I use that from time to time. Let's see. I also have pramiracetam, so PRAMICAETAM. Unlike some other acetams, priracetam does not directly influence GABA, dopamine, norepinephrine, or serotonin in the brain. So it's not a good choice if you're looking to improve mood or anxiety issues. Many neurohackers report that pramiracetam quickly provides an intense increase in focus, and some even for a boost in confidence. It is reported to be great for intense, long study sessions, or when you face logical, attention-based tasks when you need sharp focus. And that's pramiracetam. And all of these racetams, for the most part, can be found at any like nootropic place, nootropic depot, nootropic source. You generally will not find these in any kind of general like stack, primarily because while they're legal to own, they're illegal to sell and market. So it becomes like it's legal to buy, right? But not so, you know, the FDA, that's probably one of the reasons why Science.bio is shutting down. They just had too many regulatory issues. So that is the racetams. So I have a few more just things that you should, like, I want to share with you, but then we'll get into some of the other things you can do for focus. Okay. So the next one is salbutamine. I find that it helps with my verbal fluency. I haven't read that much about it doing that for others, but I've noticed that it's a little bit easier for me to write. It's a little bit easier for me to speak, just off topic on things. And so that's one of the reasons I like it. I usually will stack that with one of the racetams. There's evidence of it enhancing synaptic transmission, which improves learning, memory, and vigilance. It also modulates dopamine, choline, and glutamine transmission systems. So like if it's too high, it makes it more balanced. If it's too low, it brings it up. There's a ridiculous amount of anecdotal evidence, so people kind of reporting back that it is great at anti-fatigue, enhancing focus, cognition, energy, memory, and learning. So pretty cool. Yeah. Now, we already talked about it in all of these other things, but just to go back to it, some form of choline.
Yeah.
right? Whether that's CDP choline or alpha GBC choline, what they get converted to acetylcholine in the brain, and choline also may upregulate dopamine, right? And so it is necessary, like when you're taking a nootropic that is going to use a lot more acetylcholine, right? Like you got to have a way for that acetylcholine to be there, like when it's being pulled. And if it's not, then it'll cause a headache.
Thanks. Yeah.
So that's, and some people just take that as a nootropic in and of itself. I've never really experimented with that alone. So I can't really speak to it, but that is something that some people do. Now, another thing that I do that I haven't done as much research on it, but I have read a little bit of research on it, and it seems like it is helpful for a lot of people on it, is exogenous ketones. So I've actually been experimenting with exogenous ketones for sleep. So I drink some right before bed, and that's been really helpful to me, actually preventing me from waking up at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. But I also will take exogenous ketones like when I'm about to do a heavy brain focus kind of thing. And I find that that's helpful too, because it's feeding my brain energy. It's feeding my whole system energy, really. And since I generally have a ketogenic diet, but you don't need a ketogenic diet for exogenous ketones to be beneficial. It can.
Is there a specific brand that you use for that, Rich?
Yeah. Well, I haven't tested lots of them. So but the one I use is Real Ketones, and I use 2 different ones. There's one with caffeine in it that I'll take in the morning, right? Like, see that.
Okay.
Real One. It's from Real One. That's like Real Ketones. And so this is what I take in the morning, but then I have one without any caffeine, just plain. They also make one with melatonin, but I don't take that one. I just take the plain one at nighttime. And I really just literally drink it right before bed. And it's really just so that, like, the only reason I'm taking it is because I had read that it might prevent people who wake up in the middle of the night from low blood sugar, and since I don't really eat very many carbs, that certainly happens for me. I found, now that I'm tracking my blood glucose with levels, that's been helpful. Now, of course, there are prescription nootropics like Adderall and Provigil. We've already talked about modafinil or Provigil a little bit. It helps some people. It doesn't help others. What I found was the way I like to use modafinil, and I haven't used it in a long time. I have a prescription for it, but it's really cool if you are under the gun, got to get a deadline, something. What I used to do is I would take it and go to sleep and wake up 2 hours later, set the alarm for 2 hours later. And when I woke up 2 hours later, it felt like I had 8 hours of sleep, because modafinil / Provigil blocks out like the sleepiness side, right? I haven't found that it really increases my focus in any dramatic way. But it might do it for you. It might, I don't, what about you? Does it help you?
It works like crazy for me. The first time I took it, again, Rich, was when I was down in Florida, or actually I think Baltimore with you all. And I have tried Adderall. I hate it. It does not work well for me. But I took Provigil, and I got more done than I had gotten done in probably a week the first time that I took it. Of course, I didn't sleep for a while, and quickly learned that about half of 150 milligram pills, so 75 milligrams, is what I take now.
And my pills are 200.
I take about 75 milligrams. I take it pretty frequently, and it really makes a difference for me. So I reacted well to that one.
See, I like Adderall. I don't take it every day, because then my tolerance just gets too high. And for those who do take Adderall or have, if you need, and once again, I am not making any medical recommendations here, but
experience only.
But when combined with an alkalizing agent like calcium or like Tums, it will multiply the effectiveness of Adderall. It potentiates it. It actually, so taking that is like taking 2 Adderalls or 3 Adderalls, right? Just a way to make it a lot stronger. I found that out by accident. It's another story for another day. But those are the things you can ingest, right? And obviously, believe it or not, there's more, but that's a pretty good list.
This is just what made Rich's short list, guys.
Yes.
So there's lots more that we'll be sharing on the channel and in Apex Human.
Yes, but if you wanted to experiment with one of the ones I mentioned, I would say bromotain is one to experiment with for sure. I would pick a racetam, and I would pick a choline source, alpha GPC or CDP choline, but one of those, and then I would see, monitor your results. I mean, with all of these things, really, you have to recognize that you're doing an experiment on yourself. You have to keep things as controlled as possible so that you can determine the effects of what works for you and what doesn't, right? So that is the ingesting side. So now let's talk about listening, because listening is pretty simple and there's not that much. When I used to do a lot of late night writing, I would generally blast techno music, and I like techno music because there's no words and it's just a rhythm, and I could blast it late at night. It wouldn't distract me, but it would like amp me up, and so I would write to techno. I don't do that as much anymore because nowadays I listen to Brain FM. So you can find that. It's a site, brain.fm. When they first came out, I bought a lifetime account for that. So I have it. And it's just music, right? But music to focus, music for this, but there are binaural beats and other things embedded in the music. And I find that to be really effective. I've also used binaural beats, and you can find binaural beats just going to YouTube, type in binaural beats. There are different frequencies that correlate to, right, different brainwave states. So there's beta, alpha, theta, and delta. And, for creative tasks, you generally want to be in more of an alpha state. There's also gamma. I know a little less about gamma because we didn't use gamma in my hypnosis centers, but we did use light and sound to assist people getting into a theta state, which would be the hypnotic state. So generally, though, I find that if I put Brain FM on, within 10 minutes, I start to find myself focusing more and more. And so I enjoy that, obviously. It's another easy way. So that's that as far as what you can listen to that will help you focus. The next, believe it or not, is what you can wear. And really what you want to do is wear a hoodie. That's why Michelle's putting, or a baseball hat. I have a baseball hat here. And, these can act sort of like blinders, right? Like with a horse. And it's really just about decreasing your visual field so that it is just easier to focus. And believe it or not, physiologically, it makes a difference. Andrew Huberman talks about staring at a place on the wall for 20 to 30 seconds as a way of increasing focus. He also talks about multitasking right before you focus, because multitasking can release more adrenaline, and adrenaline then can make it easier to focus. So, there's that. Next, let's talk about what you could use. So when I used to do these long power focus sessions, one of the things that I would use are sunlight replicating lights, like if you had seasonal effectiveness disorder. I find that bright light can make me really amped up. It might be different for you. It's something to test, right? But I find I have to be careful because I have to make sure I turn them off, by 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, or I'm going to be wide awake all night. But I used to have on my desk 2 sunlight replicating lamps. Nowadays, I have these other lamps that are for filming, right? And right now they're at 10%. So they're really not very bright right now. But when I'm working on something, and if I made it 100%, I would be all faded out because it's not, it's too strong for the camera. Right. But I will turn those on during the morning to kind of get me amped up a little bit.
I've got a light I use for that as well. And honestly, best way to get natural light is just step outside in the morning for a few minutes, get some sunlight. You'll be shocked at what a difference that couple of minutes can make.
Yeah. I mean, I go for a walk every morning with Kim. I go to the gym early. It's generally still dark out. And then when I get home, I wake Kim up and we generally go for a walk. And that sunlight acts as a reset to your circadian rhythms,
Yep.
and really kind of helps with sleep that night. And also, I use an app called Rise Sleep that keeps track of my sleep debt and my circadian rhythm. So every day when I open up my calendar, it tells me when I'm going to be at my peak, like when I'm going to be at my lowest part of the day, when I'll be at my second peak. And that's useful for me as I have a lot of freedom over my schedule I can schedule stuff when I know I'm going to be at my best, as opposed to, being in a slump at that exact moment. I've also played around with taurine, but we'll talk about that in another one because I didn't really even think about that. Someone mentioned it. Also, I find that working through a timer, now that might be an ADD thing,
Works
but
for me too.
I used a timer way before I ever heard of Pomodoros. Pomodoros are really cool too. It's this idea of intense focus for a period of time, and that you're setting a stopwatch and you're not doing anything else other than that one thing that you were going to focus on for whatever period of time. And just having a kitchen timer, like, is something that's been extremely beneficial to me most of my life. So there is that too. And then last but not least, so we've mentioned the Pomodoro. We've talked about sunlight, right? I use red light every day, like a Juve light, that's supposed to help with your energy. I don't know if it does or not. I also do it for anti-aging purposes. That's the primary reason I do it. But maybe there's some element of that too. I am a big believer in leveraging your circadian rhythms, and that's why I mentioned the app Rise. It's called Rise Sleep, actually. And light and sound machines are where you're not only using binaural beats, but you're also using flashing light. So you wear a pair of glasses that has lights in it and they're flashing. And that's something that I still use from time to time. That's what we use in our hypnosis centers. It's more powerful because you're using visual and auditory as opposed to just auditory for Brain FM or binaural beats. And what I do like, though, about Brain FM is that I can have that on while I'm actually working. If I'm using a light and sound machine, I can't be doing anything else because I can't see and I can't hear at that time. All right. Some other things that you can do, right? You can take a stimulant and take a nap, right? So you could drink coffee, or you could take one of these racetams, or you could take bromontane. Bromontane acts pretty fast, so if you're going to take it, you would need to go right to sleep, like not waste any time. But the idea of taking a nap by ingesting a stimulant and taking a nap has you wake up, and a short nap, right? Has you wake up with just raring to go-ness. At least it does for me, and I know it does for quite a few other people. So it's something to try. Most people never thought of, like, taking a stimulant, taking a nap immediately after, and then waking up and being stimulated, like, from that point. Did you have something you wanted to say?
No, just that's a great idea. I've played around a little bit with it, but I want to make that a more intentional part of my schedule.
Yeah, me too, because naps can be healthy too. Other things that I do are very short cardio sessions. As I've gotten in better and better shape, I can do more as well. So it's not uncommon for me nowadays to take, well, how long would it take? Like 6 minutes, 7 minutes, to jump 1,000 jumps, like with my jump rope. And that burns 100 calories. It's not like a tremendous amount. It's equivalent of walking a mile. But that intensity and my heart racing wakes me right back up. But I've also done just like a bunch of burpees or push-ups and squats, or even a light workout, like weight session. Any of those things will amp me right back up. So if I'm feeling a little bit tired, a little sluggish, that's one of the best things that I can do. I also tend to, like right now, I work at a standing desk. It's very rare for me to be sitting down. I mean, I have a seat behind me and I will sometimes like sit down, but I'd say about 95% of the time I'm standing. And that also just keeps me more alert. Now, I would say that one of the things that I have struggled with is at times is like being willing to get started with something. And, you know, I haven't had that problem when it comes to working out, like getting on my elliptical machine or anything like that for almost 20 years. And the reason I haven't had a problem in that is that I made a deal with myself a long time ago because I was heavy and I hated being heavy and being embarrassed by the way I looked and not wanting to see people I knew because I had gained too much weight in between the last time I saw them and stuff like that, I was going to get on my elliptical machine for 5 minutes every day, no matter what, whether I felt like it or not, because I recognized pretty early on that more often than not, I don't feel like exercising. But once I start exercising, normally I feel like exercising. So that's been the rule, right? Then, like a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, I was having a conversation with Katrina Ruth during a Steal Our Winners episode, and she's insanely prolific. And so I was asking her about that. And she was saying, and she said to me, well, you know, sometimes I don't feel like writing, but I just start writing anyway. And I noticed that within a couple minutes, I'm happy that I'm writing and then I continue. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. I've done that for working out for the last 20 years. I've never thought about applying it to anything else. And so I have. And what I've realized about myself, and, you know, to each their own. So I don't know that this applies to everyone, but I know that this applies to me. No matter what it is that I need to do, if I'm not doing it, I generally don't want to be doing it. I'm doing what I want to be doing right now. And so the answer is almost always no. And, you know, and this became really clear to me a long time ago as I was kind of putting these pieces together, but this used to happen to me all the time. I used to take my daughters to tennis on Saturday mornings at 8 o'clock in the morning. And every Saturday I'd wake up at 7 and I'd be like cursing. Why do I do this? I hate waking up this early. Like, this totally sucks. And I got to wake up the girls and they don't want to get up at 7 either on a Saturday. And the whole thing just was sucky as hell. And then I go and play tennis with the girls and I have, like, within 10 minutes, I'm having a great time. Right. And I'm so happy that we went out and played tennis and, like, I'm enjoying myself and the rest of the day is great. And you would think, like, after doing that for, I don't know, 30 times in a row, like, it would, maybe I would recognize that, like, I'd wake up at 7 and feel good about it because I know I still, like, every time, like, I just hated it. Right. And so I realized that about myself, that, like, there is a tremendous amount of inertia in getting me to do anything other than what I'm currently doing. And so what I've realized is that I never feel like doing anything other than what I'm doing. And so in order for me to know whether I feel like doing something, I have to be doing it. So how I feel is kind of irrelevant. Yeah. And to do the first 5 minutes. Now, after 5 minutes, if I really still don't feel like doing it, I stop. I will get off the elliptical. I will stop writing. I will walk away from my computer because I lived up to the promise. The promise to myself is that I'm not going to decide when I'm not doing something that I don't want to do it, because I will always I don't want to do it, right? Unless it's just this wonderful, amazing thing, and then I wouldn't really be procrastinating on it anyway. So that's, for me, that's the rule, and maybe that is a rule that some of you should try. But I mean, what about you? Do you have that issue, or is that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think a couple of things that work for me, I joke with people all the time. The reason I go to the gym first thing in the morning to train is because if my brain wakes up before I get to the gym, I don't get to the gym. I talk myself out of it. So I know
Yes.
that's why I've got it right there in my day. And I go before my brain really has a chance to wake up and talk me out of it. The other thing that I do, similar to what you do, is I'll set a timer. If there's something I really don't want to get done, but I know it needs to get done, I'll tell myself 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I'll set the timer for something small, and that's all I got to do. And once I get started, I always work on it longer than the timer I set, but I give myself permission to only work on it for that long, and it really helps me get going. The third thing I do is I bribe myself. I'm not above bribery. I will set a reward for myself if I just get up, go get started on it, get the thing done. I set some sort of reward on the other side of it, and that helps, even if it's something small. That makes a big difference in motivating myself to do those things I don't want to do.
Do you know about that? Like, I haven't used this service, but I think I would actually benefit from the service. I forget the name of it, but what it does, it pairs you with, it's just a service that pairs you with someone else to work remotely with. Do you know that?
I
what the name of
do.
that?
I've used quite a few of those. There's several of them out there, and it works so well that I actually have that as an element in some of my programs. We literally have work sessions. Mondays and Fridays, we have an hour that it's not training, it's not Q&A, it's not anything except you show up, you tell everybody what you're gonna work on, you go into silent mode for 55 minutes, you work on it, and then we celebrate what we got done at the end of the session. Because just having somebody else working while you're working, it's amazing how motivating that is, and in getting you to block the time out on your calendar to get some of those things done.
Yeah, the one that I've heard about is what is it? Focus Mate.
Yep, I've used Focus Mate.
Yeah, and I think like $5 a month. You can have 3 free sessions a week, but if
Yep.
you want unlimited, like total, right? And it's just really like someone randomly is sitting across from you. You're both going to work for an hour, like, and that's kind of it, right?
I do that for lead gen sometimes, with people. We send each other a message like, "Okay, we're gonna start at time X," and it really does help to have somebody else focusing the same time you are.
Yeah, and so that's called focusmate.com. And those are what we have today, and we came in right at an hour, so this is perfect. Of strategies to increase your focus. Now, there are a lot of long-term things you can do. There's many more things you can do, and we'll get to that, I guess, in part 2. But this was a good intro to a bunch of different tactics that you can use to focus. And, you know, we all have the same amount of hours in the day. And if right now you're wasting a lot of that time consuming YouTube, going on Facebook, spending time scrolling on Instagram or whatever, or TikTok or whatever, now you have some resources that might help you not feel as tired or sluggish or unable to focus or brain fog or whatever, and now use some of that time more effectively, right? Like at the end of the day, if you had most of your workday where you were highly focused, you really don't need more than that. You don't need more time. Oh, there's one last thing that I forgot to mention, so let me mention that too. And that's speed. That as I go faster with things, it's easier for me to focus.
Yeah.
So it's much easier for me to focus when I'm listening to something at 3 times the speed than it is to focus at 1 time the speed. And the primary reason is that my brain works faster than 1x. And so when I'm listening to something at 1x or watching something at 1x, what often happens is that my brain is like thinking about other things as well, because it can. But at some speed, I can no longer think about anything else. And that applies to watching, listening, and reading.
Yeah.
And so my best way to consume information is at a high speed. And it's primarily at a high speed because that will keep me fully engaged. It's also the reason, different, but same kind of like same rationale, I guess, is that, and Michelle will tell you this, like my preference for conversations is always using Zoom or Google Meet, much more so than the phone. And the reason is that if I'm on the phone with someone and I have my headphones in, odds are is that I'm doing something else while I'm talking to that person. Like it's just the way my brain is. It wants to like a conversation speed is just not fast enough. But if I'm doing it like on Zoom or here, like where there's a video component, then I'm forced to kind of stay focused on just this conversation. And for me, that's really important. Like I don't want the person that I'm talking to feel like I'm not listening to them, and I might not be if I'm like on the phone. So
those moments.
Yeah, so I that's just, you know, it. I feel like so much of becoming a mature adult is learning what works for you and what doesn't. And, you know, I'm less inclined these days to pursue more focused things, except maybe now because of Apex Human, but because I've already figured it out for myself. Like I know what I need to do to get focused. It's no longer an issue for me, right? Like there's never a concern because like I have all these strategies and I know which ones work for me. And I know like that on a daily basis, I'm pretty focused, like because of the long-term strategies that I do, like meditating and a bunch of other things that we'll get into. But you should have the same. That's my hope for each and every one of you, that like you have some go-to strategies that you have so that whenever you need to be focused or whenever the stakes are really high and your performance is really going to dictate whether you win or lose, that you have the ability to like make sure that you're at your best. And if you don't, and you currently don't, then I really strongly urge you to kind of explore some of the things that I've suggested, or do some research on your own to find what works best. And when we roll out Apex Human, then you won't have to do any research, because we'll provide you exactly that information, because that's what we'll be using our AI tool for. But you should, as an entrepreneur, this is very much aligned with your overall success and your overall income. And so, your ability to focus is critical. And that's why you need to have strategies in a world that's trying to keep you unfocused and distracted, right? Like, there are more and more distractions than there ever have been before. I would say, like, one last thing, just like, I used to be a night owl, and I used to work all hours of the night. I don't do that anymore. I figured, like, it's not the healthiest thing as I get older. But nowadays, generally, like, I do my very best to go to bed before 10 p.m. And the reason for that is that a free hour from 10 to 11 p.m. is never going to be as productive for me as a free hour from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. or 6 to 7 or 7 to 8, right? Those hours are just better hours. They're at the beginning as opposed to the end. And so for me, I say to myself often, nothing good happens after 10 p.m. And that doesn't mean that I don't go out sometimes, but when I'm home and there are no plans, I generally try to get to bed early enough so I can wake up at 5 and hit the ground hard, right? So that's what I've got. What should we do next?
All right, so I will add one thing to this. If you want the notes from this live stream with the proper spellings of all the big words that Rich shared, all of the tactics listed out, as well as some secret information about Apex Human, leave a comment wherever you are watching this video, write #ApexHuman, and we will reach out and give you a secret link where you can join the Facebook group and get access to the notes and some other behind the scenes updates. So comment Apex Human in the comments and we will get you that.
Yes, for sure. And
let us know in the comments too, what was your favorite strategy or tactic that we shared here? If you've tried any of them, share your feedback. What's working for you? Let us know. We appreciate your feedback. And what else you got questions about? Because we've got all sorts of things related to human optimization coming your way with Apex Human.
Yeah. Also, I would love, like we've talked about creating, like doing a few of these, like over the next couple of weeks, and focusing on focus, on positive mood, right? Anti-aging, and overall cognitive enhancement. So if there's anything else that you guys would like us to do one of these on, where we just get on and I share a bunch of different strategies that I've used, then just, let us know, right? Some other things that we have on the board that we'll eventually cover are mental hacks, better sleep, looking better and being in better shape. And that is about it. So I don't know why that would ring. I'm supposed to be.
All right. Well, time's up.
Cool. All right. I'm going to a jacket required cigar bar event tonight, which is unusual. So I'm looking forward to boogieing on down there. And I hope that people got value from this. For a couple of weeks, I was dragging my feet on it because, like, there's just so much. But now that we're doing it part 2, I'm excited about that. And I guess we'll do that next Friday.
That sounds good. That works for you. We'll see everybody next Friday. Same place. We'll be streaming again, and share your feedback with us in the comments. We're excited to get this
long-term focus strategies. That's what we'll be focusing on next Friday. Cool. Awesome. Bye, Michelle. I will talk to you over the weekend. And I will see everyone next Friday.